I want to tell you about a game that shouldn't really surprise you, as I get very excited by a lot of games that are interesting and unique, things that I play for the channel, things that I stream, things that I just get excited about in my Discord. A lot of you probably know that I tend to jump from game to game pretty quickly. I've liked a lot of games over the last year, played a lot of Quiplash, RimWorld, other games, things that you guys have recommended to me, and things that I've recommended to you. This game I want to tell you about is interesting, not just for the mechanics of the game, not just for how it's played, but for how it's used, what it teaches you, what mechanics are not explicitly stated that become true via play. And I don't usually write speeches, I usually speak off the cuff, and I'm doing that now. So if I ramble a little, if I have to cut some of the story out to make it fit, I will, and I hope that you'll excuse me for that. This game is called 1 Hour, 1 Life, and it's more than just a gimmicky game about only being allowed to live for 60 minutes. It's a tale of progression, of civilization, of genealogy, and of family, in a way that few other games can really capture. Every person that you meet in this game is likely to be related to you by blood. Every person you meet in the game is another human at a desk, playing the game, with their own motives and their own imagination playing behind them, but oftentimes they have a singular goal: to survive, to improve, and to procreate. Now, procreation in 1 Hour, 1 Life is pretty simple. If you are a woman of a certain age, every so often your timer will kick off, and if a player is logging in, you'll have a baby. And that baby will be a boy or a girl. It's not decided by you, and it's not decided by them. It's completely random, much like life. You don't get to name yourself, unless you're the very first woman in a genealogical path, a woman known as Eve, and then you get to name only your last name. No, your mother names you. She picks you up to feed you for the first time, and she tells you, you are Elias, you are Darkle, you are Lily, you are John. And that's your name. Everyone who sees you sees that name, and that's forever who you'll be known as, not just when people see you for the next 60 minutes if you're lucky to live that long, but forever, as long as they look at the genealogical path that's saved online. I am player 2080344 in this path, and my mother, whose name was Joy, has named me Beth. I've spawned in as a woman. She immediately tells me that I need to stay close to the center of town, bake pies, and have babies. That might have elicited a laugh from some of you. It's ridiculous, right? That's so stereotypical of what a woman was meant to believe that she was supposed to do. But in this game, it's actually quite important. Men can't have children, and they're not even involved in the process. If you're born a boy, your bloodline ends with you. You're not going to have a son or a daughter. Your mother might have a daughter, and your sister might have many daughters, or none. I have played 1 or 2 games where the only child I had was male, and civilization died with me as I was the only daughter of my mother. It's incredibly important, then, that the few daughters who are born survive. They become the lifeline of the entire family. Everything in the game revolves around having children and keeping them alive. And if you're a woman of a certain age, able to procreate and feed the young, that might be the most important job you have. Now, you can certainly do anything you want. There's nothing that says you can't run off into the wilderness, stab a snake with a knife, make a pair of snakeskin boots. Nothing that says you can't spend your entire time farming, or raising cattle or sheep, or stabbing someone in the face because you are some sort of crazy griefer. That's allowed. It's anarchy. You will eventually get in trouble. There is a justice system that allows people to assign curse tokens to you. Although I have never seen it used myself, I'm sure it gets used when someone is particularly nasty. It's not what I'm really interested in. I've kind of brushed on it already. I'm interested in the way that the game epitomizes the woman-centered society. If you are not born as a child to a mother, you're born as an Eve. An Eve is a 14-year-old woman with no name. Her first name becomes Eve when she gives herself a last name, and this is the only time when you can name yourself. And you say, I am Smith. I am Bell. I am Cain. And you become Eve Cain. And your daughters and sons will be whatever you name them, Cain. And you may have hundreds in your bloodline by the time the game ends or your generations die out. When I started telling you the story, I told you that I was Beth Cain. I was the 9th generation. My great-great-great-great-great-grandmother lived to be 60 years old, died of old age. Her last words were, whatever. She was Eve Cain. My mother was Joy. Joy had exactly 4 siblings, 2 nameless uncles who died very quickly before they even reached a year old. Sweden Cain, who reached 39 and was killed by yellow fever, and Darkle Cain, who lived to be 57 and starved, just shy of the 60-minute limit that would have killed him from old age. I was a sibling of 7. I had a bunch of sisters and brothers. The sister, Platoon Cain, lived to be 20. All the others died before they were 10. They had no chance of spreading their bloodline or really even contributing much. You can't do anything as a child until you're 5. You can only be picked up and fed and speak in tiny little words. You can probably see some of this happening as I'm going to dub this over some footage from the game, just so you have an idea of what the game looks like and feels like. I really like this game. I like it a lot. I love stories in games that appear outside of a script, something that emerges from the gameplay. And I really like the concept that if you are born a woman, you are inherently important to the survival of your culture, even if it somewhat limits what you're able to do. And if you're born a man, you can run free and collect what you need to do, focus yourself on a single task because you're not going to be raising the kids. You can't. You don't have the equipment. But you can feed your family. You can smith tools that will help cut down trees and dig up soil. Eventually you can craft clothing. You can simply be in charge of stoking the fire if that's what it takes. The men are inherently important because they're not going to be busy taking care of the children. And again, I know that it is just a game and it has quite a lot to say, and it doesn't do it in a snarky way. This isn't what the game tells you you must do. If you wish, if you're a woman, you can simply allow your children to starve. It happens more than you'd think. It becomes a necessity when you're alone or you have a small family and you're unable to find food and out pops a child. Are you going to be able to take care of it? Is it going to kill you to take care of this child? If it reaches 5, then it might be able to help. It's smart enough. There's a person sitting at the keyboard who can take it away and find food, find resources to make equipment. I've been stuck feeding my children while my first sons and daughters have come back with fire, tools, pies to give to me because they know that the next child that comes out is going to help them. And it doesn't always go that way. Elias Kane was my first son, and he died 6 years old. He didn't help a lot. Elias Kane V, there's a story to all the Eliases, by the way. He lived to 42. He helped a lot. He did a lot of things. He was in charge of making sure we had wheat. With wheat, we made pies. With pies, we fed a lot of the family for a long time. Did it matter? When I look at my generation, my children, I had 9 children. 3 were daughters, the rest were sons. One of the sons lived to 60, died of old age. His final words were farewell. He knew he was going to die. Another also lived to 60, and his final words were, "Bush up here." Passing down some information to his children. Well, not his children, but his nephews, nieces. My oldest daughter, Lily Kane, died at 30. She starved. She starved 1 minute before I died from yellow fever. She had only one son. He killed himself. That's less morbid than it sounds. If you spawn in an area you don't like, to a family you don't like, you can type /die and you suffer sudden infant death. It is kind of morbid, but it is just part of the game's way of letting you choose when and where you start. It's weird that Lily never had another child. She was 30. It could have happened multiple times. Sarah Kane, my other daughter, a twin, also died at 30 years old. Her final words were type /die. She was convincing the baby in her arms to kill itself, too. Why did she do that? I have no idea. I think she knew she was going to die. She starved to death, just like her sister, but she left behind 2 children, a grandson and a granddaughter. Elias Kane IX lived to 37 years old before he starved. My third daughter was Joy. Joy lived to be 60. She outlived me. She had 4 children. 3 were sons. 1 was a daughter. But Priscilla Kane died at 11 years old. My bloodline died there. No one else would see me as their grandmother or mother. But my sister only lived to be 20. Her final words were, "You are Elias." Our mother asked us to name all boys Elias. I have no idea why. Platten Kane had 3 children. One was Elias Kane VI. It was a girl. I don't think Platten was able to see whether or not it was a girl or a boy when she named it. Her final words were, "You are Jane." That means she had a daughter at 18 and named it Jane. Elias died from a rattlesnake. But her daughter lived. Her daughter lived to be 59. She was the 11th generation of my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother Eve. Right now, as I record this, 0 minutes ago, there are still people playing as Kanes. The 23rd generation lived on through my sister's daughter, Jane. I have no idea if anything I did personally helped Jane to survive. But it might have. We were alive at the same time. Briefly, maybe. But I helped. I made pies. I raised children. Some of those children were men who lived during Jane's time, and they doubtlessly helped. Now the Kane bloodline has lived for 23 generations. They're still living now. Some of them have some pretty strange names, but 17 minutes ago, Generation 22 starved. One of them. There are definitely some still alive. That comes from this game. It's not the rules that the game made, it's just the way that they play out. I'm happy that my family lives on, even though I stopped playing 5 hours ago when I died. And all of that progress basically came from a single child of a single woman. It's no wonder that the most commonly used name when naming a daughter is to name her Hope. I want to tell you about this game. It has a lot to say.